Hello to all HDSB staff and students tuning in, and welcome to the Getting Ready for Experiential Learning virtual series. My name is Lisa Galley, and I'm the Acting Instructional Program Leader for Student Supports and Regional Programs for the Halton District School Board. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening to learn more about what it takes to create an impressive cover letter and resume that can help open the door to paid employment, special program opportunities, and awards and scholarships. As we always like to do in the Halton District School Board, before any sort of learning opportunity, we'll begin by honoring the land and territory on which we grow and work and live and learn as Halton staff and students. Slide, please. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. One of the most important things that we can do as we work toward a more equitable and inclusive school, community, country, and world is to keep our learning moving forward. The HDSB is hosting the Directors Panel Series on Identity, Inclusion, and Human Rights for students, staff, and community members. The first session took place on Monday, February 7th at 6 p.m. with a focus on anti-Semitism. Future sessions on topics of Black excellence, transgender awareness, Indigenous perspectives on decolonizing education and land, and perspectives on Islam are coming in the weeks to come. Dates and times will be shared on the Halton District School Board website. This series is called Getting Ready for Experiential Learning. So what is experiential learning? It's a learning approach in which students actively engage in a learning experience. We call that the what, reflect thoughtfully on why that experience was relevant to them and their understanding of a concept, the so what, and apply their understandings in a new way to a related challenge in the world around them, the now what. Experiential learning is a trusted and valued approach to deepening knowledge and skills that support retention of learning, the ability to make meaningful connections to authentic situations in the real world, supports student well-being, and offers many opportunities for students to learn about who they are and what they'd like to do after high school and beyond. Next slide, thank you. Today is the third of a 5-part series for grades 7 to 12 HDSB families and students to learn more about ways to engage in exciting experiential learning opportunities in your high school and local community. Tune in every Thursday until March 3rd from 4:30 to 5:15 to learn about the topic of the week and to hear from HDSB and community experts sharing valuable information and advice and answering your questions. Next slide, thank you. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome the Halton Industry Education Council team to our session today. I'm welcoming Tasneem Al-Baba, Program Facilitator and Coordinator, and Michelle Murray, Director of Operations. If you have any questions at all during the live stream session today, you can go to the link found at bit.ly/ELSeries-Feb17. That will take you to a Google form through which you can ask any question that comes to mind, and we'll have time to have those questions answered at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Michelle Murray from Hayek.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And good evening, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, my name's Michelle Murray, and I'm the Director of Operations at Hayek. Hayek is the Halton Industry Education Council. And before we get into the content of tonight, we know that there's going to be a lot of information for you to take in. So we just wanted to take a minute to explain who we are in the community and how you can access our supports, especially if you want to do some follow-up or ask some further questions. We're always here to help. So, Hayek is a not for profit social enterprise that's been around for 30 plus years now. We were actually founded out of the two school boards and local chambers of commerce and Sheridan College back in 1989. And really, the work that we do focuses on extending learning beyond the classroom, providing for experiential learning opportunities, with a real underlying focus on mentorship, partnership, and workforce development. I'll just reference some of the types of programs that we offer within the community. And these are things that will always be pushed through communications wise through Halton District School Board. So please feel free to keep an eye out. We welcome all students to come out to our events. Some of the things that I'd like to highlight are our career awareness program, where we do a half day of learning with grade 7 and 8 students around individual values, skills, and interests. And they have the opportunity to research with over 3,500 different occupational monographs. Traditionally, this has been an on-site program, and we hope to get back there soon. But in the meantime, there is a virtual offering available as well. Going back to that extension of learning beyond the classroom, we do a lot of work with engaging the employers in our community to talk to young people about what the world of work looks like. And we feel like this dialogue has never been more important. The last couple of years have provided so many different challenges, and access to community opportunities for experiential learning are just some of the examples of things that we feel like students could really benefit from, especially 2 years into a pandemic. So things like community mentorship events, our community career coaches events, or our women as career coaches events, where young people can come out and hear from different speakers with different backgrounds, different pathways on how they got to be where they are, and have an opportunity for dialogue and ask some really meaningful questions. We also offer some sector specific webinars, especially in some really competitive fields or fields that have been harder to tap into during the pandemic. We've done a number of different sector specific webinars and things like skilled trades or first responder careers, and all of that content is available on our website. And then the last thing I'll mention is a system that we have called apprenticesearch.com. It's an online matching system between employers and job seekers in the skilled trades, but it's also a great place for information. The skilled trades and apprenticeship pathway can be a pretty fragmented system. And so there's lots of community partners and resources out there to help students interested in OEAP or pursuing a skilled trades pathway for more information and access points to employers upon graduation. I would highly recommend that if you have young people in your lives who are interested in exploring skilled trades and technologies, to have them visit apprenticesearch.com. And maybe not so much now to register as an apprentice, but to get that information, learn more about skilled trades, hear what kind of sectors are in demand, and better understand the offerings in our community and what employers are looking to hire talent. And then finally, I'll just leave you with some of our social handles and our website. My colleague Tasneem is going to do an amazing job talking about resume and cover letter. But as I mentioned, it is a lot of content to cover in a short period of time. And so this is where you can find us. I'm sure Taz will speak to our website again at the end of her presentation. But in the meantime, we're really thrilled to be here with you. We're here to help young people in the community. So we hope to chat with you soon. And I'll pass it over to Tasneem now.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Lisa and Michelle, for your sweet introductions. So my name is Tasneem Al-Baba. I'm a program coordinator and facilitator at Hayek. My main job is to help people with employment training. So I do that through resume, cover letter, interview preparation, and so on. Before that, I worked with immigrants and refugees in their settlement journey, especially with a focus on employment. I also have a background in mental health, working with brain injury clients. Today, our main focus is going to be resumes and cover letter, what to include, what is the format, what should they look like, and some tips and tricks. I guarantee you that if you don't have a resume right now, that one day you'll definitely need one. And it's always a good idea to get the idea early on of how to create one. So, resume. It's your first impression with an employer. Obviously, an employer may not be able to see you or talk to you, but if you send that resume, it's pretty much a little summary about who you are and what you can bring to the table. So, resume is your ticket to an interview. It's one to 2 pages, usually, a short document, and it highlights your skills, qualifications, experience, and achievements. The goal is to capture the attention of the reader, whether you're looking for volunteer opportunity, co-op, whoever is reading your resume, you want to capture their attention. And surprisingly, it only takes 7.4 seconds for someone to scan over your resume and see if you're going to be a good candidate to even consider or not. So that's why it's really important to keep it nice, neat, organized, and straight to the point. So, what should we include on a resume? There are four main components. There could be more, but for now, we'll focus on the four main ones: contact information, summary of qualification, experience, and education. Number one, contact information. Pretty straightforward. What is your name? First name, first name, last name, your email address, your phone number, your mailing address, and your LinkedIn URL if you have one. I don't know if all of you know what LinkedIn is, but it's also a great resource for you to showcase your skills and maybe make connections with other opportunities in your area. So here we have an example. We have Sarah Rowe, we have the mailing address, Toronto, email, phone, and LinkedIn. The second part of your resume is your summary of qualification. This part is where you highlight your key qualifications and try to tell the hiring manager how do you align with the position that you're applying for. Highlight the skills that you gained from your previous work or volunteer experience, and showcase how valuable they're going to be in the new position. So say, for example, you have gained communication skills from a peer mentorship program that you did before, maybe in school, maybe with a YMCA program or anything like that. This kind of skill, the communication skill, is something that would transfer to maybe a customer service position that you can get in the future. So, what makes you a great candidate? My tip to writing your summary of qualification is to look at the job posting, see what the employer is asking for, and then go back and think, do I have this? Is this something that I have that I can put on my resume? And by doing that, by looking up and researching the job posting and then adjusting your resume, you're making yourself almost like a perfect fit to be chosen between everybody else who's applying for the same position as you. So let's say, for example, someone is thinking about becoming a barista. What makes a great barista? Are you a great people's person? Do you like working as part of a team? Do you have great customer service experience? Are you open to learning new things? Maybe the latest beverage recipe, for example. Are you good with cash handling? Did you work in retail before, or maybe a fast food place where you handled cash? Um, are you okay working in a fast-paced environment where it's an energetic environment? You have excellent communication skills. If you have those qualifications, then guess what? That makes you a great barista. Put it on your resume and apply. So this is an example of what it would look like. So here we have summary qualifications at the top, and then you start listing what you have. Excellent communication skills with both customers and team members, reliable, punctual, trainable, bilingual, whatever languages you have, your first, second, third language, put them on if you feel they're relevant. And of course, any technological experience that you have, know how to work with Zoom, Microsoft Office, Google Workspace. Today, in this virtual world, you'll definitely be a great asset. Now, the third part and the most heavy part in a resume is your work or volunteer experience. And why I say this is heavy is because this is where you demonstrate what you have done in the past. So for this part, you usually add the employer or the company name, the location, the city and the state, and the dates you've been employed. And then below that, we put 3 to 5 bullet points describing your responsibilities and what you have done in that position. So again, this is what it would look like. So here we have the company name, we have the community center, we have the date, March 2019 to present, we have the city underneath, Toronto, and the position title, customer service representative. Then we start listing the duties that we had in that position. So answering phone calls, interacting with participants, parents, staff, providing information to the public, all those things that you have performed at your previous either volunteer or job experience would go underneath. The last part, which is also very important, is your education and certification. Now, if you have limited work experience, you may consider adding relevant coursework or extracurricular activities. Was there a project in school that you did that required teamwork, that required problem solving? Those are all soft skills that could still transfer over to a real life employment. For this part, you would put in for your education the school name, the school location, the degree or the diploma, and then the graduation year. Also, if you have done any programs or you gained any certificates, for example, like I said, if you did a YMCA peer mentorship program, put that on. Make your resume look more well constructed. Add in if you have any certificates, WMS, or certificates that you gained, you can also put them on in this section. So again, here's an example of what that would look like. You have education and certification. And here, for example, we have first aid, we have women's, we have Ontario Secondary School Diploma, where it was, so it's Toronto District School Board, and the date. And always see how the dates are nicely aligned to make your resume just appealing to the eyes and easy to read. Now, some tips and tricks is build on your resume. Never underestimate an experience that you had. Keep gaining more experience, whether it's work or volunteer, training, education, and add it on your resume. It's never too early to volunteer. It's always valuable to add all those kind of experiences on your resume, and never underestimate a work experience. Did you work in fast food? Yes. So you handled cash, you talked to customers, you worked in a team. All those things are very valuable when it comes to constructing your resume. Avoid large blocks of text. They're really hard, and a resume is usually bullet point, easier to read, straight to the point for employers to scan through and gain an idea of what you have done in the past easily. Don't include any personal information, your gender, age, religious affiliation, pictures. You don't need to include any of that on your resume. It's pretty much a professional display of who you are. Now, for your email address, make sure to include an appropriate email address. So that would be your first and last name at gmail.com, Outlook, Hotmail, whatever it is. If you have an email that you've been using for a few years, no one wants to see big boy at Gmail, flower girl at Hotmail. All those emails are personal emails. Now it's time to come up with your professional email with your first and last name. Okay, let's talk about cover letters. Now, cover letter, as you see, I put here a little peanut butter and jam because they complement each other. Resume and a cover letter make the perfect recipe for a sandwich to send to applications, right? So, do I really need to write a cover letter every time I apply to a position? The answer is absolutely yes. So, writing a cover letter boosts your chance of success. It makes you, just by writing a cover letter, you are showing how serious you are about the position. And through writing a cover letter compared to a resume, which is bullet point, you can elaborate more on your experience and help the reviewer, whoever the employer or someone considering you for a volunteer opportunity, you're helping them pay more attention to the points on your resume. You can also add in what makes you unique. In a cover letter, since it's your own writing, you can showcase your communication skills and stand out from competition. So cover letter has three main components. It's pretty straightforward and easy. The first one is your contact information. Again, so same as a resume, we add in our contact information. So here we have the name, the location, your address, email address, phone number, and the date of when you wrote the cover letter. The second part of the contact information is the other person's contact information, where you are sending your cover letter. So here we have David Marks as the hiring manager. We have the company name. we have their address, and you can also add in their email and phone number as well. So the introduction paragraph, that's where you show how excited you are about the position. And you can also let the employer know where you found it. Did you find it on Indeed? Was it word of mouth? Did someone recommend you for this job? This is the part we can mention all of this. So here's an example of what that would look like. So, dear Mr. Williams, daycare assistant position, that's the job you're applying for. I'm writing to express my interest in working as a daycare assistant at the Sunshine Daycare. Miss Angela Jones, the executive director of Youth for Kids, suggested that I write to you about this great opportunity. She expressed how impressive your school is, and I thought I would be a great fit for the role based on my qualifications. So, as you see here, the important part to add is what position you're applying for, the name of the company, and where you found that position. So just by this, an employer can read and be like, okay, I like what this person is saying. They're interested in our company. They're interested in working with us. This person, Miss Angela Jones, has recommended them. They think they're a good fit. And they're telling me that I should look more into their application. So I'm going to do that. The second part is where you state what you can bring to the job. And this is also kind of the bulky part of a cover letter. That's where you squeeze in your skills and your experience, your training, everything that you had that would relate to the job requirements that you're applying for. So again, if we go off the same example, after reviewing the job requirements, I feel confident that I could contribute to making the Sunshine Daycare a positive experience for the children who attend. For the past year, I've babysat regularly a number of families with children between the ages of 2 to 10 years old. So you see here the examples are more specific compared on a cover letter where they're bullet point. Maybe they're like, on a resume, they're more bullet point, babysat children ages 2 to 10, had great rapport with families. But here it's more of a paragraph, it's more of a letter where you can express yourself better. Repeat business and word of mouth referrals have demonstrated that I am excellent at keeping children in my care safe and engaged. So again, it gives you a chance to talk about yourself. Now, the last part of a cover letter is the closing part. And this is again where you can express your interest in the position one more time, indicate that you are looking forward to hearing back from them, and thank them for their time and consideration. Then add your signature and you're done. Here's an example. I would be pleased to come in for an interview at your earliest convenience to further discuss my qualifications as they relate to this position. I can be reached at phone number. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Sincerely, then your signature with your name. And that is it. Now you have written your resume and your cover letter. You made your little application sandwich and you're ready to send it off to wherever you're applying, whether it's co-op, whether it's volunteer, what is your first job. You have all the skills that you need in writing a resume and a cover letter and hopefully being a successful candidate.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Tasneem. That was useful information, I think, for all of our students, but probably a number of our parents and guardians as well that might have thought, oh, it's been a while since I've thought about what a good cover letter and resume should really include. So thank you so much for giving all of that information. That's fantastic. I would remind students too, I know sometimes they think, well, where can I get help in putting these cover letters and resumes together? And certainly your teachers can be a support, going and seeing your guidance counselor if you're in a high school, or your student success teacher in an elementary school. And certainly there's lots of community organizations as well, like Hayek and the YMCA and other places where that support can be offered. So don't ever think that you're doing it alone. There are ways to get help while you're doing it. I wanted to now take any questions that our viewers might have. And just a reminder again of the link at bit.ly/EL series Feb 17. That will take you to a Google form where you can submit any questions that come to mind based on what you've been listening to today. And I do have a couple of questions for Michelle and Tasneem as we get started here. So the first question is it okay to use software programs like my Blueprint that give me a template to set up a resume and then build it from that? What do you think?
Absolutely. That's the best way to go about it, because sometimes it's hard to start, especially if it's your first resume. You wouldn't know how to do it perfectly and right off the bat. So using all the resources, there's numerous resources. Just by searching on Google, you can find all those resources, or coming to any of these workshops. We always offer different resources. So definitely starting with a template, either for a resume or a cover letter, would give you, that confidence of, knowing that you're following a certain guide, and then adding whatever you want to add to personalize it and customize it from there.
Taz, I'd like to just add one thing too, and I echo everything Taz is saying. Absolutely. We're big believers in access your allies, right? And so my Blueprint is a great technology that HDSB is using. And so by all means, use that. The other thing too is that when I talk about accessing allies, it touches upon what Lisa said, asking for maybe teachers to give a little letter of reference, or really playing out those skills, even if you don't see directly how they're related. I can't tell you how many times, and the folks that we work with, once we start to talk to them, we unpack all of these things that they've had experience with, and none of them are outlined on a resume or cover letter. And quite often we'll ask, and they'll say, well, I just didn't think it was worthwhile because it wasn't exactly what I was applying for. And I would actually say, put it all in. And see, it's a lot easier to take away than it is to add. And so get your teacher's feedback, get some folks, your parents, other guardians, to read it over and help you maybe whittle it down, but add all of those experiences because they really speak to many different things.
Fantastic. Thank you. Actually, I'm going to jump off of something you said, Michelle, about references. So I think this is a great question, actually. Should I include references on my resume, or should I have it as a separate document that I would bring to an interview, or either approach? Okay. What do you think?
So usually I wouldn't include references on a resume right away, just because sometimes you're asked for them, sometimes you're not. In a lot of cases, you may be asked for your references, but that is something that whoever's interviewing you will ask you for, and be like, hey, can you provide me with a list of your references, either via email or paper? And a lot of times it's via email after your interview. And the reason is because after someone decides that you are the candidate that they're willing to go with, that's when they ask for references, because they're not going to call everybody's references before they have even met you in person. So I would hold off on the references and provide them when they're asked for.
It's also a sneaky way to know that they're interested in you. And so if they follow up to ask for those references, I would also recommend that you let your references know and maybe speak a little bit to that first interview. So when they're speaking to your references, they could actually say, yes, actually, Tasneem reached out and said what a wonderful interview she had and how excited she is, and make it that much more personalized to the position.
For sure. I like that, now that they checked your references, that they're considering you more seriously.
Mm-hmm. Great. Wonderful suggestion. Thank you. We just actually had a question come in from a grade 9 student, and they're asking specifically about keeping track of all the extracurriculars that students are engaged with, the activities, the dates that they did it. They're just saying it's hard sometimes to keep track of all that information. And then sometimes when you go to write your resume, you're sort of scratching your head and trying to remember, when did I do that again? Do you have any tips or strategies for keeping organized with that information so you've got it ready when you need to write a resume or a cover letter?
So I would suggest updating your resume regularly. So if you have any new experience, go in and write it down. Write what it is, who you did it with, and the date. If there's no end date, at least put the start date. And when the end date comes, then put that down as well. You can also keep like a little tracker, a little notebook, somewhere where you can write stuff. You can write it on your phone in your notes, however you want to, like, however you would like to keep up with notes. That's my suggestion. Michelle, if you'd like to add.
Yeah, no, I guess the only other thing I would say is, Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure somewhere in my blueprint, there would be a spot to record some of those certifications or trainings or experiences as they happen. And then they'll all be in the same place when you start to use the resume template there as well.
Yes, that you just took the words right out of my mouth, Michelle. That's exactly right. There is a place in my blueprint where students can track that. They can also actually set up a portfolio in my blueprint, and they can write things through a portfolio submission. They can actually even record themselves saying the information and then play it back later, or video themselves doing that. So there's lots of different ways to capture it. But that was a great question. So thank you to the student that submitted it. Here's another question. It says, should the qualifications on my resume be changed with every job that I apply for, depending on the requirements? Or is it fine to just make one resume that works for any possible job that I would look at?
Yeah, for sure. So usually I recommend making a master copy resume where you have all your experiences and your qualifications and the things that you know you have as soft or hard skills. However, when you are applying to a specific position, I would customize your resume and definitely your cover letter every time you apply. Just because if you have maybe customer service experience and that's what you have on your resume, however, the job you're applying for maybe needs more teamwork and doesn't really require you to talk to customers, but you can take communication skills and put that on in the new one, because that would that would relate more to a teamwork kind of job, right? So every time, just look at the posting, whatever they're asking for, whatever they're focusing on, because these qualifications from the employer are there for a reason, right? They're looking for those kind of qualifications. So if you go back, you study that, then you come back to yourself, see what you have, go back to your master copy that's already there with tons of qualifications that apply to you. Take the ones that are relevant out and keep the ones that are relevant there, because like we said, employers take 7.4 seconds to look at your resume. So you want them to catch the most valuable stuff at the beginning.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many resumes we've received for various things, whether it be co-op roles or full-time employment, where it's a generic resume. And so I think Taz's point to having a master document is great, because it's going to allow you to pull from that document, but always, always, always make sure you customize it for the position. It does make a difference. It does stand out. And truthfully, if somebody applies to Hayek and they haven't given any consideration to who we are or aligning it at all within their resume, chances are we're not going to look at that person for a next step interview.
Great. Thank you very much. And I was just thinking the same thing, having seen resumes sometimes that, actually will have a different position listed accidentally, or the wrong name that the cover letter's addressed to. It's from the last job they applied to. You definitely don't want to have those slip ups, and it's worth taking that extra time for sure. Thank you. Here's a great question. I've often wondered this myself. So a student is saying, I have submitted a cover letter and a resume somewhere for a part-time job, but they handed an application back to me and still wanted me to fill that out as well. Why would they do that? That's their question.
So I would say sometimes different places, different companies, they have their own procedure of that they follow regularly. And maybe if they're doing paper copies and that's what they're following, then that's fine. They already looked at your resume. The fact that they handed you an application is completely fine. Don't be discouraged or disheartened by it that, they're saying, oh, your application was invalid. No, that's just their way of doing it. So completely fine. Fill it out and send it back to them.
Okay,
I
great.
totally agree. I think sometimes too, scanners, if people are going to put through applications through a scanning system to kind of go through an algorithm and pluck out those pieces of information that they really need to make sure are there, But again, even if somebody says, no, no, just do the application, I would still be inclined to put your resume and a customized cover letter along with it.
For sure. And I do remember an employer once saying to me that they thought an application was a great way to see how well the person followed instructions, right? Because they would find sometimes that people wouldn't read what it was asking, would put the wrong information, or it was a way to check out handwriting at a time when, I mean, now we have lots of digital applications, but often they were filled out by hand. So it's interesting sometimes to think about what else are they trying to figure out by looking at an application. So those are all good things to keep in mind. Thank you. Here's a question that I think is quite common, actually. A student is asking, what if I don't know who to direct my cover letter to? So I want to personalize it, but a job ad's come out and it doesn't tell me who it goes to. Do you do the to whom it may concern, or what would you advise?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times it's the name is not on there and you can't figure it out. So what you're left to do is to write to whom it may concern or dear hiring manager. So that's completely fine. They know that they didn't provide a name. So if you write that, no worries at all.
Okay, thank you. My next question is that's come in is, how long or short should my cover letter and resume be? So can it be too long? Can it be too short? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a resume would be 1 to 2 pages. I wouldn't go over 2 pages just because employers don't have that much time. Like I said, it's a quick scan at first, and then they would see if they would consider you more. And it's unlikely that every single experience or every single certification on there is relevant for that a specific position. So you may want to go back and take out the less relevant experiences so you can compress it. A resume that's too short, definitely try to use better wording. Sometimes I see resumes with 3 words for description for what they did as duties, right? You can expand more. So instead of picked up phone calls, you can say professionally picked up phone calls and utilized communication skills in helping out customers or in helping out clients. It's a matter of wording to add more. And like I said, always keep building and working on your resume. Never underestimate an experience, add it on there. Never underestimate a certificate, a study that you did. And even if, like we said, if you have extracurricular activities, coursework that you feel is valuable, add it on to make your resume more. Now, for cover letter, 1 page is usually good enough. Paragraphs that are you see in the paragraphs I put, maybe you can add a little bit more, but not less, because I put like the minimum kind of. But again, it's something that an employer has to read among every other resume and every other cover letter that they are receiving. So you don't want to bore the employer. You want to get their attention and get straight to the point and tell them why you're a great fit.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that really helped to clarify. We've got another question which has just come in, which is I've used resume websites which give you starter sentences, since sometimes it's trouble just getting going with the right wording. Is it important to have a professional tone? And if so, how should I work on kind of figuring out what the right words are to use? Do you have any suggestions around that? And I think that's a really common challenge for students as well, especially when they're just learning how to write this. And sometimes you get used to that social media kind of tone and way of writing, which we know is not the way we want to do it in a cover letter and a resume. But how do you work on getting better at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for verbs, I would focus on action verbs. And that is something that you can look up and you can get a whole list of action verbs. So led, facilitated, participated. And then you can also look up lists of soft and hard skills, of communication skills, time management, organizational skills. So putting those kind of words together will help you come up with those professional summaries and those job qualifications. So once you look kind of the wording up, also read up resume samples. look at what the samples out there say and how they are written, and then get inspired and come back and try to write your own. Make sure there aren't no grammatical errors or spelling. Have someone double check it, read over, a parent, a teacher, a mentor, anyone that you know, even a friend, have someone read over to just double check that there's no spelling or grammar errors, and take it from there.
The only other thing I would add there, and I agree with everything Tasneem is saying, is don't be so overwhelmed and try to be so professional that you're not being authentic either. And so I think there is definitely a place for being professional, obviously, and to Tasneem's recommendation, pulling out some verbs and make it be as polished as possible. But also, it's speaking to you. And so make it be authentic and let your spirit kind of shine through in the best way possible. And I think there are lots of templates out there. There is the resources through My Blueprint. There are organizations like ourselves who can walk you through it, and we'd be happy to look those over as well.
Great. Well, I think we've got time for one more question, and this is an interesting one, and I'll be interested to hear your answer as well, Michelle and Tasneem. The student is saying that in their career studies class, they learned about the fact that sometimes people do creative sorts of resumes or cover letters, right? So a resume that sort of comes off as a piece of artwork or something very unique. They've made reference to like a cover letter on a coffee mug that you drop off when you're applying. So something that's really going to stand out. Do you recommend those really unique ways of doing cover letters and resumes, or do you think there's potential risks in doing that?
So it's never too bad to add your personality in resumes and all that, but through your writing and through your expressions. However, I do see a risk because resumes are subjective at the end of the day, and the employer, whoever you're submitting into, is just going through so many other resumes that they may not even have time to appreciate all the work that you put in if it's like creative wise. So don't think that will increase your chances. I think that maybe it could decrease, because if it looks too artsy, it may show that you're not too serious about the position, and also it depends on the position you're applying for. So I have a friend who is an artist, who's a professional artist, and her resume looks way different than mine. So she does have images, she does put images of her artwork. If you're applying to a creative kind of position, then that is definitely a way to showcase your talents a little bit, as well as your professionalism and all that. So you just have to weigh and measure and see where you're applying and how much you want to add, how much color, how much character you want to add in there, but to be able to still be professional in your delivery.
I totally agree with Taz. And so I personally love the look of a visual resume. But there's a balance there. And sometimes when it comes back in that coffee mug is so big on the page, there's 3 words across the mug. That's actually not going to speak to your capabilities or to your passion to applying for this position. And so I think it is a balancing act. Beyond My Blueprint, lots of people use Canva for resumes where it's going to layer in some imagery, but still give enough structure that you're able to capture all those core elements. But again, as Taz said, like if you're applying for graphics or some kind of a design position, yeah, maybe play around with it. But I would also shop it around with some friends and teachers and make sure that the design isn't taking away from the content.
Great advice again. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our students and our families that submitted questions today. Those were some great questions. And I feel like we covered a lot of area between cover letters and resumes. Thank you. And we can move to our last slide, Tasneem. Thank you so much. I really want to thank you and Michelle both for taking the time and sharing your expertise and wisdom around cover letters and resumes. We know that this is what you do. You've seen a lot. And so this feedback for our viewers today is really, really helpful. And I have no doubt is going to help them pursue those unique experiential learning opportunities in their schools and in their communities that are going to be enriching as they navigate their pathway in life and in their career. So thank you again for all the great suggestions that you provided. We really appreciate it. Thank you as well to all of our viewers that tuned in today. We hope that you found this to be informative, and we hope that you tune in again next week. Next Thursday, we will be here with the YMCA Employment Services talking about interviews, another great session with lots of valuable learning as we, again, look at how to get ready for experiential learning opportunities. Thanks for being here today, and we wish you all a great evening.